Crafter, and welcome to my channel. So right now I'm doing a little mini series where every Friday I am posting a review video. Last week I reviewed some compression gloves for crocheting, and I'll link that in the card up there. This week we are going to be talking about a Woodburner. Specifically this Woodburner from Walnut Hollow. So let me just preface this review video so you know what to expect. So first of all, I've owned this thing for a long time, so I do have the perspective on how it lasts over time. However, I have not used other Woodburners, but what I want to give you a feel for with this Woodburner is if this one is a good one for somebody just starting out. So I'm going to give you an overview of the product itself. I'm going to show you the product in action, and then I'll kind of go through a pros and cons list of things that I really like about this product and things that I don't like so much. And of course, as always, I will have this Woodburner linked in the description below. Oh, one other thing before I actually jump into the review of this video. I meant to say this in last week's video, but I forgot to record it, so I just popped up with text. But this week the case is true again that I am not sponsored, I am not endorsed by Walnut Hollow. This is something that I spent my own money on Amazon of my own will, and this is just my honest, open review of this. So if you're wondering, like, is she sponsored? Is she gonna make it sound good so that we go buy it because she gets paid money? I am an Amazon affiliate, but I want to be completely honest and open with you guys. I want these reviews to be helpful and not just tricking you into buying a product you're gonna hate and then end up returning. So let me just clear the air of all that. Let's take a closer look at Walnut Hollow's Woodburner. Alright, so here we go. I actually have two of these Woodburners. One of them is my sister's, one of them is mine. But this is, I'm going to read off the Amazon listing here, the Walnut Hollow Creative Woodburner Introduction Value Pen for Beginners and Intermediate Woodburners. Okay, kind of a mouthful. Basically, this is their cheapest pen, if you want to put it that way. As of filming this, it is listed for $9.42 on Amazon. Of course, prices fluctuate, so I can't guarantee that will be the price if you decide to order this, but that's what it's listed for right now, just to give you a ballpark feel for the price of the pen. For those of you that this will actually mean something to, it's a 25 watt, 120 volt, AC, 60 hertz Woodburner. I know what those things mean, but I have no concept of how those values actually play in, but I thought I would just, give you that information in case it actually means something to you. But when you purchase this item, you get a few key things. First of all, you get the Woodburner itself. So this is the Woodburner pen. This part here, this green, and this first metal part, and then it's got a long cable that just plugs into an outlet. I've got it plugged into an extension cord here. It has a little toggle on-off switch. So you toggle it on, toggle it off. It also comes with this stand here. It just is a little metal piece that, you can fold, stick up, and then you can prop the Woodburner on that. And then it comes with 4 different tips. So when we got these Woodburners, it came with this tip here, and this is kind of like the chisel tip. I'm sure these all have names, but I don't, exactly know all the names of them. This is kind of like a chisel tip, I think. But regardless of its name, that's what it looks like. Here's what that tip looks like outside of the pen. Then the other 3 tips that come in the pack are these ones right here. These ones never got opened, but I did open mine, so I'll show you those. There's this rounded tip. This one, I believe they called this one their shading tip. It almost looks like a petal, like a flower petal or a leaf. And then the 4th tip is this one that I have on this other pen here. It kind of comes to a point almost like a pencil. And again, both of these ones, they just screw in and out of the Woodburner. So that's what you get when you buy this off of Amazon. You get the Walnut Hollow wood burning pen, you get one stand, and then you get the 4 different tips. Let me show you those tips in action. So these are all things that I burned using this Woodburner. Some obviously look better than others, don't judge, I was just playing around, And also I'm trying to make sure I keep the weight of this cable up on the table because I did have one just fall on the floor. Thankfully nothing got burned because I was able to grab it in time, but yeah, you obviously want to be really careful with this. So what I like to do for my setup is I have an old cookie sheet that I set on either like a hot pad. This is something that I hand crocheted from old towels. And then I set the Woodburners either on the stand or else directly on the tray because the tray can of course handle the heat. But whatever your setup, you obviously want to put safety first because these do get very hot. So these have been heating up for a good bit. I'm just gonna kind of play around and show you how the different tips look. With this one, press it onto my plywood here. Not really pressing, I'm just kind of holding it against and slowly slide it along. Burns very nicely. Of course, as the pen heats up all the way and gets hotter, it's going to burn darker faster. Of course, you can move it fast, or you can move it slow to really get thicker, darker lines. So this tip, you can use it where you're just using a flat edge to create really precise, thin lines. You can angle it sideways and drag it along. You can put more pressure at the top to kind of create a gradient. You can put even pressure along the whole length and slowly bring it along to get a nice wide section. you can take it and just kind of stamp it down in one spot. Let's see if I can get that to work there. Like so. If you hold it there for too long, this like shaft here of the Woodburner is also hot, so if you press it down and also touch that edge there, you're gonna get extra little burns there. But that's this first tip. The second tip here is what I'm calling the pencil tip. It just kind of comes to a point. Again, I'm gonna just put it to my wood and slowly drag it along. Some really nice clean lines there. We'll go with the grain of the wood so you can see it again. This one's great if you want to do some dots. Just press it down for a moment. You're not really pressing, you're just holding it there. And you burn, of course, the longer you hold it there, the bigger your dot that you burn will be. Go really light. If I just, do a quick little draw, it almost doesn't even burn the wood. So if I slow down just a little bit, I can get some really faint things. Of course, I can go really slow and get much darker, more defined lines. So now let me show you the other two tips and then also how to change out the tips. So all the tips just screw in, and if your wood burner is unplugged and you have not been using it and you are positive, absolutely positive, it is cool, you can unscrew the tip with your finger. However, this has been on for probably the last 15 minutes. I do not want to touch that. So if you want to change the tip while you are wood burning, you're gonna need a pair of pliers. You just gently grab the head with your pliers and start to untwist. Just keep in mind that's really hot. So obviously put safety as a priority. So I'm gonna actually hold it over here so when it comes out I can just, let it fall down. So that's the tip out. This is what the pen looks like without a tip. So again, when I go to put this guy in, even though this is cool, that's still really hot, so I'm gonna use my pliers to put it in so I don't, burn myself, because that would not be cool. You do want to twist these in fairly snug. You obviously don't want to strip the screw threads, but you do want it to be in place enough where it's not going to be sliding around. Also be careful grabbing the tip with your pliers because you don't want to ding up and add rough spots to the metal tip. So this one they call the shading tip. I just call this like the flower petal or leaf tip. There's not really any right or wrong way to do this. There's mainly just different techniques. So if you just want to make a petal, you just push straight down, apply even pressure throughout the whole thing, hold it as long as you want to create the petal shape. You could do a little flower. You can also slowly slide this one along. And just how you apply pressure will determine how it ends up looking. You of course can use the tip on this one if you don't want to swap out back to one of the finer tips, but you do need a tip to draw a line. Flip it over and slowly drag it along to wood burn your lines. Again, you can do dots with this. I'll show you one other thing that you can do with any of these is you can just create a whole bunch of texture where you just press it down on top. Like if you're trying to make a background for a project, you can just press it down on the wood, hold it there for a moment, and fill in an area to shade it in, and it'll give you some really neat looking textures. Or you can color in a big area quickly. And also be careful if you touch it right away because we're burning the wood, so the wood's gonna get hot too. And then I'll show you the last tip, which is just this rounded one. One other thing I'll mention is when you swap tips and you put a tip in that is cool, it may take a little bit of time for it to heat up enough to actually burn the wood, so you do need to be patient. All right, so again, if I immediately go to start wood burning, even if I hold it out for really long, it's not burning it as much as this tip can, so you do wanna give it a moment to heat up. So as you can see now, I don't have to hold it in place for as long and it gets a lot darker. And also I find that when it's hotter, it tends to just go more smoothly on the wood and just burns more consistently. So again with this one, you can use it for lines, you can use it for doing curves. Another thing that's really fun to do is if you kind of go really dark and deep and kind of gouge out the wood, you can create some really cool textures if you just kind of drag it all across itself and like shade in a whole big area. You get some really cool textures from it. So this is fun if you want to outline some letters. You of course can do a bunch of dots, and they're kind of cool if you do them all on top of each other, create some really neat texture. Again, you can go a lot quicker and get some really faint lines, slower for darker lines, just to show you the contrast here. So now that we've got a good feel for what the product is and the results we can get from it, let's talk about the pros and cons. I think probably the biggest pro of this product is the price point. I absolutely love that it is under 10 bucks because I feel like there's so many things in the crafting world, whether you want to get into making stencils, whether you want to get into metal stamping, things like that, where to get started, you have to put a lot of money in. And that can be really frustrating because a lot of the times, until you try a project, you don't actually know if you want to keep with it and actually improving with it. So I feel like $10 to get into wood burning really isn't bad at all. This is a great tool to start with if you're a beginner because it's only 10 bucks. So best case scenario is you love it, and then maybe later down the road you decide to buy a higher quality, more expensive one. You've only invested $10 in it, so when you go to buy, say the $50 one, it's not like you've already bought a $50 one and can't justify buying a better one. The other thing is if you do get into it and you decide that, yeah, wood burning's not for me, I feel like it's a pretty solid tool that you would be able to sell it to a friend, sell it on eBay, and maybe get a little bit of your money back. Again, we're talking under $10, so I can be kind of cheap, so like, even under $10, I'm still like, do I really want it? But seriously though, under $10 really isn't bad for getting into a craft medium. Now, since it is under $10 and it's marketed as a value pen, you're probably wondering, how good is it actually? So overall, I'm really happy with it. As a pro, it definitely burns very well, and I love that it comes with multiple tips. On more the con side, it can take a while to heat up, and I have noticed that sometimes it does a great job. It heats up, it holds a consistent temperature. When I'm using the tip, I get really consistent results, but I have had enough times to notice where it either took it a really long time to heat up, or else it heated up and then I was using it and it quickly lost heat. Now, that kind of is just part of wood burning no matter what tool you get, that after you burn for a little bit, because you're transferring heat from the pen to the wood, that it is going to cool down a little bit. But there have been a handful of times where I've noticed it was definitely impacting the consistency of my burnings. So that's just something to keep in mind. I absolutely love that it has a toggle switch because I think that's so easy. Instead of like a little slider switch, I like that it's a toggle switch just on the cord. However, this is just a personal pet peeve of mine. I really wish it had a light or something because if you burn yourself, you're gonna know it's on. But it'd be nice if there were a light or in some other indicator letting you know that, hey, the wood burner is on and it is hot, do not touch, other than just having to look at the black toggle switch and be like, okay, which place is it swapped to? So I definitely love the toggle switch, but would also like an indicator light. I kind of already mentioned this, but as a pro, I really love that it comes with the 4 different tips. I feel like those 4 tips are really good to get started. Hopefully you kind of got the feel that you can do a lot of different things with just those 4 tips. And if you purchase this and decide you really want to get into it, I'm pretty sure that they also sell additional tips that you can buy. If that's true, I will include this part in the video, and I'll also in the description down below link to some of the other tips that you can buy for the wood burning pen. Having said that, when it's time to actually change the tips, it's not the most enjoyable part. It's not terrible. And sometimes the tips are a little loose, either you use it for a while and the tip just kind of loosens up with the threading, or sometimes, you might not get the threads lined up quite right and it might be a little loose. So I have run into that, but it hasn't been enough to really impact it. So that's kind of a con, but for me, it hasn't been a deal breaker. 2 other cons that I want to mention really quick is the stand. The stand's super nice to have, but honestly, it's kind of a pain because it's really hard to balance it on there. So I honestly don't really use the stand much. If you're gonna put a stand with it, I feel like, put something that's actually gonna work well. I feel like the stand's kind of hit or miss, but again, I think of the stand as kind of just an extra. So if you're buying this because you really want the stand feature, maybe look into other options. But again, I don't really use the stand much. I usually just throw it down on my cookie sheet that's on, a hot pad. So for me, that's not too big of a deal. One last thing is as far as how comfortable it is. I have found that several times if I've been burning for a while, the green part of the handle can get really hot. Not like you're gonna hurt yourself hot, but where you're going, ow, this is really uncomfortable. So you're not getting to the point where you're gonna burn your skin off while holding the handle, but it can get to the point where you're like, I need to take a break, let this cool down because it is so hot. So I know that seems like a lot of cons, but when you think about it in the pros category, everything you need is there to get wood burning. You've got the great price point, you've got the different tips, and really definitely a pro with this is I feel like I got what I paid for. It's under 10 bucks and it's the value one, but I don't feel like it's super cheap piece of crap. For me, it definitely works and I've been very happy with it. So that's the pros and cons, just kind of giving you some different things to consider about this pen. But I guess the best way to sum it up is if I were going back in time, having already used this, knowing what I know now about the product, I would still choose to buy this product again. I have been overall very happy with it. But if you're thinking about getting into woodburning, I hope that this video helps you. And as I mentioned, I will have the Amazon link for the product down below in the description. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you make a purchase, basically it doesn't do anything to you. Like, you still pay the same price whether you go through my link or not, but if you do go through my link, Amazon gives me a little bit of their profits and it helps me be able to keep making these videos. So if you decide to order this product, I would love if you followed my link down below. Also, don't forget to look at those other tips out there if you want to expand your pack as you get further into woodburning. Let me know in the comments below if you think you're going to give woodburning a try. If you've used this pen, let me know your thoughts, whether you agree with my pros and cons or whether you came to a different conclusion about the pen than I did. Now before you go, don't forget to like the video, hit the subscribe button down below, also turn on the bell icon notification somewhere down there, and have a happy time crafting. You know, as we come to these last moments of this video, I feel like I just need to really open up with you guys and just be completely honest with you and just say that I'm getting over a cold, so I'm really sorry that my voice has sounded so scratchy and you've had to deal with my terrible scratchy stuffed up voice for this whole video. So I just want to be real with you guys about that.